Oh, Danny boy, the podcast is calling. Welcome to Talking Shit, where we are talking all sorts of shit. I'm Jess Sterling, of course, joined by my co-host, the amazing, the incredible, and the super not dead Stuart. Stuart, how are you?
Oh, I'm here to talk about the misery of our lives, how we might never escape this place, and how we do not want to end up in a coffin like Carl here, who's right next to me. So sad. I'm good. How are you?
Oh my gosh, this episode is incredible. We get the Moira Danny Boy moment, which it wasn't necessarily on my list of like, I can't wait for Stuart to get to this. But when I thought about it last week, wrapping up last week's podcast, I was like, oh yeah, okay. I can't wait to get to Danny Boy because it's iconic.
Yeah, I was about to scold you and be like, "How was this not on your list?" Because for me, this was one of my favorite moments of the entire show. It just epitomizes Moira's just such weird confidence that she has in these weird, strange moments. Yeah, I love her to pieces. I hope she never changes.
Moira's an icon.
Mhm.
It's absolutely incredible. This episode, season 1, episode 9, Carl's funeral. And I'm pretty sure last week, Stuart, when we podcasted, you were like, "Do I know a Carl?" And I was
Does
like, "I'm not sure."
anyone?
Bob knows Carl, Stuart. Bob and obviously the Schitts. They're very
Well,
close to Carl.
he knows of Carl. I don't think he
Mhm.
knows Carl because
Yeah.
based on Bob's understanding of how Carl died, I don't think Bob quite understands Carl, if you get me.
Yeah, really
A little
awful
awkward.
stuff. Yeah, a little bit of
Mhm.
bad stuff, but they do a good job, I think, at like kind of weaving in the comedy of the whole situation
Totally.
where Bob is just like so unaware of like what it means that his brother used a belt and a ceiling fan to do certain things. Like, good God, Bob, get it together, my guy.
Sad times. Sad times. Poor Bobby's so sheltered. He doesn't believe that bad things of that nature can happen. He just found the
Yeah.
stud. He's just like that.
Stuff finder, yeah. So before we jump in, don't forget to subscribe, Talking Shit. Follow us on social media at Talking Shit, and of course, watch us on YouTube. You could see me belt Danny Boy at the beginning of the podcast if you really wanted to do that. And of course, if you have feedback, send it in podcast@talkingshit.com. Stuart, do you want me to jump into the recap so that we could chat through this ridiculous episode?
We can, because there's a few things that I need to make sure that we get covered in this, because there's a lot to talk
Mm-hmm.
about.
Okay, everyone, please take a seat. We are here today to celebrate the life and legacy of Carl Curie, brother of Bob's Garage. Gone, but not forgotten. Apparently, Carl was a big fan of Johnny, and they want him to be pallbearer. Johnny excuses himself due to his quote unquote bad back, but gets roped into speaking at the funeral. When Johnny has a breakdown about dying in Schitt's Creek, Moira comes to his aid with a dramatic rendition of Danny Boy. Meanwhile, the motel has some new scaggy guests in town for the funeral. Their loud music, partying, and very small baby get under David's skin. And it turns out the guests are related to Stevie. Stevie and David find a baggie of weed after doing some token and drinking. They hook up, which credit to Moira for that not being the very headline of the episode. The fact that
Hmm.
Stevie and David hook up, it's like, no, we're too busy talking about Danny Boy. Uh, Alexis ditches the motel for Ted's nice apartment, but unfortunately for her, Ted is fostering two dogs who are quite pervy and won't leave Ted and Alexis alone during their evening activities. Ted gets them a hotel room and a book on how to care for someone other than yourself. Um, that was a gift, Ted. and
Red flags, red flags.
and that's our episode. Stuart, where do you want to start? Because there's just so many options.
Oh yeah, where do I want to start? David and Stevie. Oh my god, what the hell? That came
Yeah.
out of nowhere. Well, not nowhere, but I did not expect it in the slightest. And when it happened, I was screaming at my laptop, and I was like, ah, like what is happening already?
Yeah. Yeah. So we're 9 episodes in to season 1. I don't know. I when I first watched this, I felt very similarly to how you're reacting, which was shock. because
Mhm,
there's really no setup for this. Like, we've always discussed Stevie and David in terms of their friendship, right? I
mhm.
don't know that we've ever even considered the fact that any of those scenes might be seen as like flirting or anything like that. So I want to know, Stuart, obviously you're shocked, but do you see this as a positive thing, as a negative thing? Are you somewhere in the middle? And also, where do you see this going? We got a question from my husband. So, David and Stevie, are you shocked? And where do you see it going?
Oh, totally shocked. If and all of their scenes up until now have been purely, I thought, like totally platonic. I think that they bonded over the fact that Schitt's Creek is a shithole, and both of them have an appreciation for how awful it is. But also, there's a camaraderie of just like, well, we're both in this together. Let's kind of mock it from the sidelines, and we'll get on like that. Never once did I think that anything romantic would go down, and I don't think this is anything romantic. I
Okay.
don't see this going anywhere.
You see
I
this as a
see it
one night
being
hookup because of the drugs and alcohol that were
yeah,
imbibed
I
in.
mean, like, by Stevie's admission, when she gets a bit, like, effed up, she tends to, like, come on to people,
Yeah.
and I think that David's being a bit of, like his apparently is shame eating, but then is that just a catty comment? Is he the same? Is he the kind of person that just hooks up with someone when he gets a bit kind of like high? Who knows? But I can't see this being anything other than next week we kind of open to them being like, "What happened? What did we do?" And then not really talking to each other, it being awkward maybe, and their friendship kind of recovering, and then them coming out of this better friends. That's my hope, at least. If they go down the romance route, it's not that I won't be here for it. It's just that I think there's been zero setup for it, so it makes no sense to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm not gonna give anything away, obviously. I know where this goes, if it goes anywhere. But I do remember being quite dubious. Because obviously, like, David's sexuality isn't explicitly stated, but you kind of assume one thing or another about his sexuality. And on top of that, like you said, there's really no setup. Like, every other scene they've ever had feels very platonic, feels like they're speaking to a best friend, not a romantic interest.
Yeah.
So yeah, fair enough to say that, like, without the drugs and alcohol, do they even hook up? Is that a thing that even happens? Probably not. Also, it kills me every time I watch this scene, the when David holds out his arms with the beer bottles and just drops both of them simultaneously.
Mhm.
So
Just
extra.
embracing it. He's like, "This is happening."
Yeah,
Like, oh gosh.
yeah.
And then with the little, like, honeymoon suite lights going around from the disco ball, I was like, because at first when they started making out, I was like, "Oh, there's gonna be, like, a pull away, there's gonna be like, oh, no, this isn't right,' or this doesn't feel good,' kind of thing." But no, the moment I saw where they were, I was like, "Oh, damn, they fucking."
Yeah, yeah.
So
So I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens with all of that.
mhm.
I do like David finding weed, and like his reaction to it too is like finally something fun to do in this town. Like,
Yeah. His excitement when he's, like, holding it and then Stevie's like, almost like, "You offering?" He's like, "Yeah," and he's, like,
yeah.
getting in that you just know that he's, like, this is pent up and he wants to have, like, some fun.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Anything else on David and Stevie and their kind of, I mean, we see Stevie partying a bit. David, I mean, I felt for David because if I had a next door neighbor slash, like, if I'm in a motel, whatever, that was that obnoxious and I would be so annoyed and upset. And having this guy be like, "Yeah, we're here for my stepfather's funeral, and we're just celebrating his life." And also this
Mhm.
guy felt like, I know that was a terrible impression, but he felt most Canadian to me of like any of the characters we've met. And it's simply because, have you ever seen a very popular, I think it was like a viral video on YouTube of like, what the hell did they say? Oh my god, the Canadians are gonna hate me. It's
Mhm.
go for a rip or something. For
Go
a
for a
rip.
rip?
Out for a rip. That's what it's called. Yeah, out for a rip. It's like, it's very Canadian.
But he's being very un-Canadian by being rude.
Oh,
Like, I
yes.
always
I meant
consider the
so more
Canadians
so
to be the most polite people ever.
his accent, I felt like was the most
Oh, yeah.
Canadian of anyone that we've seen on the show. So watch the Out for a Rip video, in between episodes because I'm gonna need to hear your thoughts on it. The first time I watched it, I was like, "This is unbelievable. This is what Canada's like?" It's very like the rednecky part of Canada. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so that's David and Stevie. Let's talk about Alexis, who thankfully is like, I'm out skis. Like, I don't need to be dealing with this. Ted has an apartment, which I think this is the first time we're seeing Ted's apartment, right? So any thoughts on
Mhm.
Ted's apartment and what it looked like?
Entirely what I expected. Like,
Yeah.
pristine, clearly, like, thought has gone into it, but it's also a little bit, and this is no judgment to anyone who maybe matches Ted's aesthetic, totally not my vibe in the slightest. Like, the glass dining table that's, like, quite clearly polished to within an inch of its life, everything, like, being kind of immaculate, but also a little bit gaudy in a way.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's entirely what I thought it would be.
Yeah, yeah. At least Alexis is happy with it because she's able to get away from all of the noise and the motel. And this is like
Mhm.
she's viewing this as like a little mini vacation for herself. Um, Unfortunately, and this is the weird thing, right? Like if you don't like animals, I don't know that you should be dating a vet. I just
Yeah.
don't think it's a good idea.
You'd kind of think that, like, you would go into it knowing that there is a risk of occupational kind of bleed through. Like, you're gonna meet animals at some point.
Mhm.
Like, they're gonna come up in conversation. You're gonna have to fake being enthusiastic about it, but you are more than likely gonna actually encounter these animals now and then. But, like, oh, the, I want to say that she should be like, "Oh, they're dogs, like, they're really exciting and stuff like that," but one's wearing a freaking nappy or diaper, as you guys might say, and
Yeah.
it has worms. Like, get that off the sofa, like, immediately. What the heck is Ted
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, Macy and Pfeiffer, they're just staying with him for just a couple of weeks. And yeah, your worms are almost gone. And I love Alexis. Is that a diaper on that little cutie?
Mhm.
Um, yeah, here's the thing. Um, I am a dog person. I absolutely adore dogs. Any shape and size. I don't care if it
Mhm.
has a diaper. Like I would be like amped to pet a dog. That is not who Alexis is, and, like, I
Yeah.
understand that, right? Like, hearing that a dog has worms, not really exciting. Seeing a diaper on a dog, you're gonna have to change it, right? Like, it's just not ideal, and I think the main issue, Stuart, is that, like, Ted did not warn Alexis about this,
Mhm.
right? Like, I'm sorry, Ted, like, you know Alexis by now, right? Like, you have to assume that she's not gonna be super happy about some dogs, especially with worms in a diaper.
Mhm. You'd think that Ted would be walking more on eggshells around Alexis and certain kind of things that she's rather particular about because
Mhm.
she does have fairly kind of high and established standards. So you would expect that he's
Mhm.
kind of like looking out for all these kind of potential risks, like left and right. I mean, he already Febrezed the place because he had Indian food. Like, he's thinking
Mhm.
about these things, but the pets are a absolute blind spot for him because I guess he doesn't see them as being
Yeah.
anything like other, like, dogs are dogs and like they're always going to be around. But still, buddy, you've got to like make sure people are all okay with dogs. Like, you can't have them just running in and jumping on people. Like, imagine if they kind of freak out. Like, that's not good for
Yeah.
anyone involved.
Yeah, not super great, and it only gets worse when Ted and Alexis are it's time to go to bed. They're gonna have a little bit of an intimate moment. I love the line, "Oh, I'm so glad you're not my brother." Yeah, I'm pretty glad about that too.
Yes. I mean, we know what she means by it, by the fact that, like, she's not sharing a room with her brother and stuff. But don't
Mhm.
say it then, Alexis. That's the worst timing ever. Total boner killer.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely hilarious, and then they start kissing, right? But, they're not alone. At first, it's just the small dog, and Alexis is bothered because he's staring at them, and Ted tries to say, "Listen, sometimes they just do that, they just stare." And then the big one comes along, and she's like, "Wait a minute, the big one is now sniffing the diaper, like, are we gonna have to, like, change the diaper?" And she's obviously very distracted. And to be honest, Stuart, like, I kind of understand where Alexis is coming from. Like, especially if she's not super great with dogs to begin with, having a dog watch you while you're, like, naked and doing things feels inappropriate.
Yeah, especially because for a lot of people, their pets are like their kids in a way. Like people very
Yes.
much treat pets as kids these
And
days.
Ted even says that. Ted says, "Oh, for tonight, just
Yeah,
think of them as our children," which also isn't a thing you should be saying to Alexis.
especially not before you say like "I love you," or at least you go to
Yeah.
say it and then backtrack later on. But
Mhm.
these these little pets are perverts. Like just the way in which they're watching so intently, and it's like, and then sniffing the other one's diaper. It's like gross. But I don't blame Alexis for being weirded out by this in the slightest.
No, I think
If anything,
even
I
pet
blame Ted
owners
completely.
I think even pet owners would say, "This is a bridge too far," like,
Mhm,
especially when the relationship is fairly new. You know what I mean? Like, this
mhm.
isn't like a situation where it's Ted and Alexis's dog they've had for years together, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the situation. And on top of that, I will say, like, this is where I think that Alexis really cracks me up a lot of times with just her facial reactions to things. Like I mentioned when she tries the Meadow Harvest smoothie and she just goes, "Oh my god." Like
Yeah.
she looks horrified. Annie Murphy is incredible with that sort of thing, and no exception. When Ted is kissing her and she wants the dogs to leave and she's just mouthing, "Get out. Get out."
Out, out.
And then the other thing Ted does wrong in this moment is he's like, "Okay, you guys can leave for now, and then you can come back and sleep with us." And again, as a dog owner, if the dog is not in my bed, I'm upset. Like, I want the dog to be on the bed. But
Mhm.
that is certainly not an everybody thing. Even certain pet owners are like, "No, the dog does not come on the bed. It stays on the floor, on a bed, on its crate." Like, you have to play it safe, Ted. And this is you can tell she's uncomfortable, man. Come on.
Yeah, yeah. And the dog's got worms. I'm just gonna reiterate it again. Like, Ted, I don't think you as a vet, you are taking this seriously enough. Like, the dog has worms.
I
Keep
don't think
that
you can
thing
get
on the
worms from it
ground.
though, but yeah, the
I
grossness
don't
wise.
care. It's grossing me the fuck out.
And what do you think of Ted's move at the end of the episode to get Alexis not just a little bit of a hotel stay for a night or two so
Mhm,
they could get away from the dogs, which I'm like, well then who's watching the dogs? But okay.
mhm.
Might as well get someone else to watch the dogs. Anyway, but on top of that, he puts them in a book, How to Care About Something Other Than Yourself.
This could have been such an easy win for Ted if he had just booked the room and handed that over. You've won. Like, you've absolutely done the best thing you could do, which is you secured a romantic night away at a Premier Inn. But instead, he has to give it over with this book, which has the worst title possible. And I know that he is so well intentioned with it. Like, I don't think he's got a mean bone in his body to like think about this. He's just a bit dense when it comes to, weirdly enough, other people's emotions and caring about what others think. Because in that instance, he should really have considered what Alexis might have thought about that. But it was just the
Yeah.
worst.
It's here's the thing. As a person who loves dogs, and I really like if anybody knows me, they know if we are out and about in a public area and I see a dog, I'm gonna point it out. Oh my god, look at that dog! Like every time, I really love dogs. Not everybody loves animals, and that's just like a reality. Do I understand it? Not necessarily, unless you're allergic. I don't understand why people wouldn't like dogs, but some people just don't. And I think that like Ted as a vet needs to understand that and not try to force it on Alexis. And also, if that's a deal breaker, I feel like that is like you got to end things sooner rather than later. I could never have dated someone who didn't have a preference for dogs. You know what I mean? It's never anything I could have done because
Yeah.
I can't imagine, you know what I mean? Like being with someone who's like, maybe not. But that's who Alexis is. And so I don't think giving her a book is gonna make, first of all, giving her a book at all. Second of all, I just don't think it's gonna make her want a dog. Like you can't force someone to enjoy pets, you know?
No. I think, like, there's this whole thought around, like, kind of getting with someone and then kind of slowly kind of changing them, like the whole "I can change him" mantra, kind of thing that's a typical trope
Mhm.
in TV shows and films. But there's an element of changing people's small little habits, like getting them to put the toilet seat down when they're, like, done and things like that. Small little things that kind of, make a massive amount of change in the home and stuff. But fundamentally, getting someone to think about others complexly is a big personality change, and to be able to, like, win someone over towards animals that and they're already not won over by their kind of mid-20s, I think you maybe have missed the train there, and I don't think it's something that's gonna change, nor do I think it's something that necessarily should change. People are
Mhm.
okay to not like animals. Like, it's perfectly, like, fine to be like that, but to try and change it, I think this is the first sign. Well, no, actually, this isn't the first sign. This is, I think, many signs that this is not
Yeah.
gonna work out with them long term.
Yeah. On the bright side, he is just fostering the dogs, so he doesn't actually seemingly own any pets himself. So that is the bright side. However, he's a fucking vet. Like, you know, it's
He knows how extortionate it is.
yeah, exactly. It's really expensive to own a pet. So yeah, I mean, Alexis seems okay with it, right? Like she's excited for the hotel
Yeah.
stay. Like she doesn't really care. I don't think she really reads too much into the book, pun intended.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's their storyline. We'll see what ends up happening with their relationship. We're getting towards the end of the season now. I don't know if we've mentioned that on the podcast, but there's only 13 episodes in this season, so we're getting quite close
Really?
to it.
Crikey.
Um, but let's go to the headline here. Moira and Johnny and Carl's funeral. Um, gosh, Stuart, Bob has a level of guilting people that I just admire so much. Like how he's able to guilt people without himself feeling like a terrible person. I'd never be able to do it.
I guess I kind of admire it in the way in which, like, kind of sociopaths really don't have empathy. Like, it's I admire the fact that someone's brain can work that way. I don't necessarily
Mhm.
want to operate that way because
Well,
there's a
because it's so
certain denseness
awkward.
to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the you can feel how awkward it is. Like, I would say Bob has a level of, like, what I like to call mom guilt, and
Mhm.
basically what that is if people don't know, it's like when your mom, specifically only you and your mom, they're able to guilt you into doing anything, essentially, because they're your mom, and not they don't even
Yeah.
have to be like, "Well, I did give birth to you." It's, like, unsaid, you know? It's just, implied that
It's the
I brought you
worst
into
form of
this
guilt.
world, and so now you must do things for me.
Yeah. But the way in which it's kind of this is the thing. Bob and Johnny are two sides of the same coin in the fact that, like, neither are picking up on the signals correctly. Like,
Mhm.
Johnny could get this over with a very frank conversation with Carla. Just says, "Look, I didn't know the guy. I feel a little awkward doing this. I don't think it's my place." Bob could then come back with, "Yeah, I understand that. However, we've got no pallbearers. The guy didn't know anyone. It'd be lovely if someone said a couple of words. Go up there, read a poem, sit down. Job done." But no, it exacerbates because neither is considerate of what the other person actually is thinking or feeling.
Mhm.
And so it just snowballs into this awkward scenario that is so cringeworthy. Like, I can't deal with it. I don't understand how these people get by with this level of
Yeah.
cringe going on in their life without addressing it. It hurts me to watch.
Yeah, they're both so non-confrontational that neither one of them, like, Johnny won't come out and say, "I don't know him, I can't do this," and Bob won't come out and say, "I really need this." You know?
Hmm.
It's really funny, and so Johnny, obviously, he doesn't end up doing the ball-bearing duties because of his quote, unquote, "bad back," but he gets roped into singing or excuse me, speaking at the
Hmm.
funeral, has an epic meltdown basically about being concerned about dying in Schitt's Creek and how awful it would be, especially after he finds out the circumstances surrounding Carl's death. And
Mhm.
Moira jumps in to save the day with a rousing rendition of Danny Boy. Gets the entire funeral singing it, which cracked me up so much, Stuart, because they were so actively bad. Like, especially Johnny, the timing was not there.
Yeah, it was an absolute shit show. But the enthusiasm was there. That's the kind of main
The
thing, I
heart was
guess.
there, yeah.
Yeah, I guess, and it was good that some emotion was actually shed at this funeral, that apparently no one really knew this guy, despite the fact that there were numerous guests, many of which traveled in, but no, Johnny's the one that has to speak.
Mhm. He
I
really
don't
admired
understand.
Johnny. He really admired him, you know?
Why?
'Cause he owned a video store empire, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
so
it's
awkward.
it's so great. And then they of course they have an encore like after the funeral. And again, Moira is I love Moira so much cuz she is so herself, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes that self is like seven different personalities, but she's always herself. And so when they ask her to do like an encore, she's like, "Oh, I couldn't possibly. Oh, gee, me, just little old me, you know." And but she does it, and you can see one of my favorite little like sight gags in that scene is Johnny just continuing to eat sandwiches as Moira sings because he knows it's going to be a while.
Oh, he gets through a whole egg sando just in one go. It's actually quite incredible because it's a thick sandwich as well. But I love the fact that she is exactly like that. Like she knows herself and she's like unashamedly herself. Like when she arrives and they thank her for coming, and she just goes, "John said we had no choice." To say
Mhm.
that to someone at a funeral is just a bold move. But no one says anything because I think they respect her, but I think they also respect what like the balls to say it in the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Moira's an icon. And of course we are gonna talk about her funeral ensemble because I like I it's a little samey to her normal wigs, but like it has color in it and she has a hat on, so like we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this whole thing is so funny. Again, I love that we're getting the side characters more involved, right? Like the shits are there, but like mostly we get like a lot more Bob.
Mhm.
Twyla, oh, girl,
Oh,
Twyla, just a
bless
small
her.
Twyla moment of her saying that death is like life, except you're not here anymore. As someone who's gone through like some pretty like crappy like life death stuff recently, the that made me laugh so hard. Of death is like life, except you're not here anymore, and no one knows where you are.
Yeah. You're somewhere else, you know, but that's okay. Like,
I was like, I'll just take a coffee,
oh.
please.
Yeah. But
Oh,
you get
Twyla.
people that get like that. They kind of feel a sense of wanting to say something profound to like really
Yeah.
encapsulate the moment and not to make light of someone's circumstance because like any kind of like sadness in that kind of realm is very kind of like you don't want it to feel like a small fleeting moment. You want it to be a
Yeah.
big thing. But some people really gild the lily with it and they make an absolute arse of themselves in the process.
Yeah.
Twilight, bless her, she's just trying to help. She's just
Yeah, don't try
trying.
to say something profound when you're really not sure what you're saying. It's why they
Hmm.
invented the "I'm so sorry for your loss," or
Yeah.
"They will always be remembered," or "They'll always be in our hearts," or whatever. That's why they made those like cliche canned language responses to someone's death.
Yeah. I think cliche in these moments is fully acceptable. If anything, encouraged. So you don't deviate from the
Exactly.
script and you can just get through the day.
It's very much when when people, I don't work in an office, but when I used to work in an office and "Oh, hey, how's it going?" You cannot say anything other than, "Oh, it's okay, it's good." If you don't
Yeah.
tell the truth, I don't actually care what you're doing, so don't say the truth. If you say anything other than, "Oh, it's all good," or or like, "Oh, thank God it's Friday," this is how we get along as a society. Okay,
Yeah.
this is how we move forward.
Do not deviate
No,
from the script, people. If you're out there thinking right now, I'm going to actually say how I actually feel, don't.
don't do
I'm
it. You're gonna make
telling
it
you now,
awkward.
don't do it.
If
Yeah.
it's anything
People will
I if it's anything but
resent you.
positive, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be really bad.
Yeah. Short,
Yep.
sweet. Okay, thanks. Done. Get on with
Yep.
your day.
Exactly.
It's the most
Uh,
antisocial people in the world.
but it's because here's the thing, like, 9 times out of 10, and maybe people are very close with their coworkers. I never really was. And so, like, it always feels awkward, like, as if I'd tell you all my personal business. Like, I don't wanna, you know what I mean? Like, I barely know you. I'm not gonna, like, reveal all my secrets to you, you know?
Yeah.
It's
I
just
mean,
not
I'm
what I
not
wanna
that
do.
okay. I had a breakdown last night because of this place. Thank you for asking.
Exactly. Work sucks, life sucks. What else can I say? Um, so just a little life advice, you know. One more thing before we get into some feedback and ratings and all of that fun stuff. I couldn't help but notice, because I've watched this episode so many times, and I paid attention to like different things. When David goes into this like party at the motel room next door, the song that is playing is ridiculous. The lyrics are "Let's order a pizza. I've gotta eat something before I throw up."
Didn't
What?
even clock it until I saw your note on it, and I was
Mm,
like, "What the hell is this?" Of course, it's a Canadian rock band of obscure fame that we're
yeah.
probably gonna get shouted out for not knowing, but the
Is this a
lyrics,
real song though? Let's
yeah,
order a
from a real
pizza.
band. They're called Pew Pew Pew.
Nah, they're not called Pew
They
Pew
are.
Pew. That's funny because I really thought it was, like, a song that they like, royalty free sorta song that they needed to get for the show, you know?
I thought that might be the case as well because, I think it's in this episode where Stevie's reading, where David first goes into her, the book Stevie's reading is made up for this show.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember looking it up and being like, "I wanna, like, see what Stevie's reading. I wanna see whether there's,
Yeah.
like, a hidden joke or something." No, it turns out that the book that she was reading was made up. So I thought maybe it'd be the same for this, but then when I saw that you had posted the lyrics, I was like, "There's no way I'm not googling those." And yeah, it
Yeah.
turns out Canadian rock band called Pew Pew Pew.
There's nothing to this song, though. Like, it's, "Let's order a
Oh,
pizza.
no.
I gotta eat something before I throw up." That's said a bunch of times. And then it's, "Not calling, called it, not calling, called it, not calling, called it because I ordered it last time." And then we just repeat those same 2 things over and over and over again.
Funnily enough, it sounds like the kind of lyrics that have been formed from recording people while they've been high, and it's just like, "No, no, no, not calling, called it." Just
Yeah, I'm
over and
not
over
calling
again.
that order the pizza this time. So yeah, if you were a fan of that Canadian rock band, I'm so sorry. But I just found the lyrics to be very funny. It's just, "Let's order pizza. Gotta eat something before I
2
throw
for
up."
2 for the Canadian offense already,
Mhm.
just
Yep,
doing
yep.
well today.
Yeah. We did get some feedback from some listeners. Trish says, if ever there was an episode you want to continue watching, it would be this one. High cringe meter at the funeral. And it is not okay for pets to be in the room when things are getting romantic. I think this might be a markdown for Ted here, as he didn't acknowledge Alexis being uncomfortable about the dogs. Very
Totally
fair.
agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. The need to watch on is massive. I kind of was resenting this podcast for a brief moment because I wanted to just watch the next episode, and I did
Hmm.
question for a small second of whether or not I could get away with it. But I thought, no,
Hmm.
my luck, I'll slip something in and I get called out on a podcast. So I've held off. But you best believe the moment we hit stop on this record, I am going to watch it
Hmm.
because I need to know what happens.
Yeah, very fair, very fair. We also got some, I really appreciated some tidbits from people about their experiences as dog owners with this situation. And Aaron says my dog excuses himself from the bedroom, which I thought was hilarious that a dog is smart enough to be like, "Uh-oh, like he just copped a feel, time for me to get out of here," you know? Like it's just like
Love
the idea
that
that this,
idea.
I mean,
Oh,
the thing
they're at it
is
again. Let's go.
I'll go lay on the couch. It just cracks me up because dogs are very like they notice signals, right? Like
Mhm.
I had even noticed that my dog, like if I had said the word dinner, like he knew the word
Oh,
dinner.
yeah.
And so like I have to imagine a similar thing with the dog in the bedroom, you know?
I don't wanna know what the buzzwords were for that tip off, but
Oh my gosh. And then and one of the persons, and my dog finds herself closed into the room. She cries to leave.
oh, so sad. Just let me out. Let me out. They're at it again.
Yeah, please let me out of here. Oh my gosh, so funny, so ridiculous.
Mhm.
We also got a question from Ashley, I believe in reference to the Danny Boy song. What's your go-to karaoke song? Do you have a go-to karaoke song, Stuart?
If I'm feeling like a troll, tequila, because it's hilarious just
Like
to
that
sit
na
there
na
for
na 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 na
yeah,
that one?
you get there for
The
like a
only
good
word is
2
tequila?
2 minutes, and then you just go, "Tequila." Gets a laugh every time. But yeah, otherwise it's got to be Queen Bohemian Rhapsody, where you get everyone involved with. I love
Yeah.
those. What about you?
Yeah, I will say I've only done karaoke like twice in my life, so I don't have like a go-to because I don't do it all that much. But like, of course, I'm gonna do Journey Don't Stop Believing. Like, I don't care if it's basic. Journey is my favorite band, and that is my favorite song, and I love it so much, and everyone else loves it too. Everyone knows the words.
It's similar kind of thing what we were saying earlier about cliche. Sometimes cliche is needed. And I think for
Mhm.
karaoke, cliche and well known songs are absolutely needed. No one wants to hear you sing a Radiohead B side or something like that that no one
Exactly.
knows. Don't have your moment, have everyone's moment.
Yeah.
Journey, Queen, I don't know, Sinatra, like you've got to do the
Yeah.
classics.
And I think the only way you can get away with doing a song people don't know is if you are actually a legitimately like incredible singer. That's the
Yeah,
only way you could do it. And the only reason you should be doing that is like you're going for like a belty tune, you're about to show
yeah.
off. Then by all means. But otherwise, yeah, stick to your classics. Do Sweet Caroline. People love doing that. Ba ba
Ba
ba.
ba ba.
Everyone loves it. Everyone loves it. So yeah, you got to stick to the classics with karaoke. I
Mhm,
agree. I think that's all the feedback we have. So don't forget podcast at talkingshit.com. Tag us on social media at talking shit if you want to send in feedback for these episodes.
mhm.
Let's get into our ratings here. Stuart, who this episode is simply the best?
So I always try to weigh it up. I don't want to kind of look at one person exclusively and then kind of forget the small little good things that others have done.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see in any way how I can't give this tomorrow this week for Danny Boy. It's we've been talking about it for a lot of this already. I think it's iconic. She saves Johnny in the moment. It's perfect.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's the perfect crossover of a selfless and selfish act simultaneously, where it's like,
Hmm.
I will save my husband from the breakdown that he is having in a very public place at a funeral, while also drawing all the attention to me, which I really
Hmm.
want.
Yeah.
So it's perfect. It's so Moira. It's so extra, and the fact that she does it twice. How are you not gonna make her simply the best?
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely earned. Well earned.
All right, disgruntled pelican point Stewart. Who you got this episode?
There's a couple of contenders. There's a
Hmm.
good few contenders. So, before we started recording this, I was like, do we have any particular rules around this? Because Brie and the other half were just awful. I don't think there's any redeeming
Hmm.
qualities in them at all, but they're not around that much. Maybe they might come back. Who knows? But then you've got Ted with the awful book recommendation. You've got Bob just not picking up on things. And then you've just got Johnny being Johnny.
Hmm.
Oh, it's really difficult. But I'm going to give it to Bob.
Okay.
I feel bad for the guy. His brother just died, but I have to give it to him because, I mean, just don't ask a complete stranger to speak at a funeral. It's just the worst.
Yeah, I'm actually with you. I considered giving it to Johnny. However, like Johnny does isn't in that position if not for Bob essentially forcing his hand. Like,
Mhm,
yes, Johnny does have a breakdown while speaking at a funeral. Don't ask him to speak at some stranger's funeral. Like,
yeah.
that's on you, Bob. Like you speak. I mean, I know it's difficult. It's his brother. Like, find someone else. There. That's what the priests and all them they could do readings and stuff. Like, Johnny didn't know this guy. He barely knows
Mhm,
you. Like, it's just too much. And I love Bob. We've all established this. I love Bob. But it's too much and he shouldn't be doing it. And he's the reason why things are the way they are. So Bob, unfortunately for you, you gonna lose some points here today, Bob. But
surprising. I really didn't think that you were going to give it to Bob, but what with your belovedness of him and
I
the
have
Bob
to be
dog.
objective sometimes. And
Mhm.
while I did consider giving it to Ted, I said I have a soft spot for dogs, and I would be really happy to have two little pups to give pets to. So, I couldn't. Um, let's discuss Moira's hair in this outfit. In this episode, in this outfit, we have kind of her normal looking hair. However, we've added in some like magenta-y stripes and a very interesting feathery headband. Of course, she's also wearing the chandelier as a necklace, as always. What do you think of this, Stuart?
I love that the one time she incorporates color, it's at a funeral. I just think it's such a choice, and it talks about her drawing the attention in just the best way. I don't know how it went through her mind of like, oh, okay, I've got all of these wigs with kind of like blonde with like, and then many with the kind of like black highlights and kind of
Hmm.
dyes and everything. No, I'll go for the one with color. What a choice! She's
Yeah.
just such a queen.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. I love the feathers. It's just like I feel like Moira would have a very extensive collection of like fascinators for some
Hmm.
reason. And so I appreciate an accessory and I love the feathers. It's so extra. It's going to make her like stand out even more. You know, I wish it was a little bit taller cuz I think that would even be funnier.
Yeah.
But just trying to see like watching someone try to see over the top of her head. But yeah, it's incredible. I love this look as you said. I love the magenta. It's such a look and it's such a bold look for a funeral for someone you don't know.
Yeah, completely. But no one questions it because it's Moira.
Because it's exactly because it's Moira and she can do no wrong because they're just
Mhm.
like, "Oh, well that's just who she is. That's just Moira,"
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, completely.
All right, let's get into our tier ranking for the episode. Carl's funeral. So far, we have nothing in hot shit. The cabin is the soulful bouquet. Love that journey for me. We have 5 different episodes. Ew, David. We just have Allez-vous and Our Cup Runneth Over, which is the pilot. And nothing in shit out of luck. So, gut instincts on where you think this one lands, Stuart. How funny was Carl's funeral? How much did you enjoy it? Did you put did this one put the fun in funeral for you, Stuart?
That's a sentence I never need you to ever ask ever again. Fun in funeral. I don't know, I was thinking about this and I was wondering, like, where I would rank it because this has got, like, a huge moment with the whole David and Stevie thing. Like, maybe I'm blowing it like massively out of proportion. Maybe it doesn't turn out to be as big of a deal as what I'm thinking it is right now. But I was genuinely shocked, and I think that it's like one of those kind of like key moments in a season. As the actual episode overall, though, there were elements that I was like, well, we've seen the party with the cabin already. We've seen the kind of torture that goes in the hotel. We've
Mm-hmm.
had awkward moments. There wasn't anything that really like made me proper belly laugh until Danny Boy at the end.
Right.
Everything else was just kind of like it's very early seasons of The Office where it was like the cringe level was higher than the
Yes.
comedy. And I don't I don't not appreciate that. Like I do appreciate it rather than double negative, but I don't think this was a standout. So I'm kind of leaning love that journey, maybe even a new David, kind of around there. What about you?
I'm with you. And like without giving too much away about like I feel like a lot of times when I'm ranking these, I'm also thinking about the implications of this episode, right? And kind of the vibrations that are felt from this episode later on, right? Like where
Hmm.
what the influence this episode has on the future of Schitt's Creek.
Yeah,
And I agree. Like I think the standout moment is Danny Boy, and I
yeah,
think without that moment, this episode isn't that great. I don't think it has. I think like the Ted and Alexa stuff is fine. Like loud neighbors next door, it's okay. I mean, I love getting like Stevie and David getting like high and drunk is very funny. But
hmm,
I they're just like certain things that are like just okay when you don't have Danny Boy. With Danny Boy kind of propping this one up, I would put it in the you David category. In my opinion, it's just a matter of is it above or below Allez-vous at like the top of that you David category? What do you think? Like, would you put it? Is it better or worse than Allez-vous?
I think it's worse than Ali V. I think Ali V had more sustained jokes throughout the whole thing, and I
Yeah,
think
the
that this
David and
one
Moira
pulls its
together.
punches a lot.
David and Moira together for me is better than anything that happened in this episode beyond
Yeah,
Danny Boy.
completely.
All right. Well, that's where we're going to put it. See, we're diversifying, you know? Look at us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Going
We have
down
to be
towards the end
tough.
of the season.
Yes, we're getting towards the end. We have 4 more episodes this season. Which, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. And I'm really excited for us to get into like all of season 2 and everything it has to offer, and just even the end of this season is like so exciting
Mhm.
and so fun. Um Next week, the episode title, Stuart, is Honeymoon. Do you have any guesses as to what
Honeymoon
happens?
Suite. So
Okay.
maybe it's picking up on that. I'm trying to think. We've not heard of anyone getting married, so I've got to assume it's David and Stevie.
Okay.
Hopefully, we're going to get lots of drama around that then. Fingers
Uh
crossed.
And we are gonna have a guest as well next week, so that's really exciting. This episode is fun. I'm really excited to talk about it. I do think you're gonna like it more than this episode. I just think there's like
Good.
there is a um similarly to this episode, there is a very iconic moment in next week's episode, but for very different reasons. Which we'll get into once we get to that episode. I want to bring some like the meta of it a little bit to speak about. I'm not
Gotcha.
making any sense, but you'll understand next week when we talk about it.
I mean, I'm saying I got you. I have no idea, but
Yeah,
I will in about half an hour's time.
there you go. Well, I think that's about everything we have. Don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe. Leave us a rating review. We really, really appreciate it. In the meantime, I'm also on Schitt Shows Taught Me, talking about Buffy, talking about Felicity. Felicity chopped all her hair off, so that's the latest and greatest. Um, we're not okay, but that's all right. You know, you go through breakups, you chop all your hair off. What else is new?
I mean,
Uh,
you'll do it.
yeah. Beyond that, that's where you can find me. Oh, and actually, I'm going to be on Whirlwind Podcasts very soon, talking about Pretty Little Liars Original Sin season 2, which should be fun and messy and just chaotic and ridiculous, and I can't wait. So that'll be a ton of fun. Stuart, anything else you want to say? Where can people find you? All of that good stuff.
Check me out on socials, Stuart Drinks Tea. And yeah, as mentioned already, like keep the feedback coming in. We really appreciate it. As all the ratings as well. That really does help us out a lot. So if you could give us a rating, really appreciate it.
Yes. All right. Well, we will be back next week to talk about honeymoon. And until then, I hope you don't have any scaggy next door neighbors. Bye.